Karen Whitfield had read the Cedar County Courier for as long as she could remember, or so she believed. The site looked exactly like the hometown paper she grew up with. It carried the school board meetings, the high school football scores, the road closures, and the weather. The small obituaries of people whose names she half recognized. When an article appeared explaining why a local ballot measure would raise her property taxes, she read it carefully, believed it, and shared it with her neighbors. What Karen did not know, what she had no way of knowing, was that the Cedar County Courier had no newsroom. It had no reporters. It had no office anywhere in Cedar County or anywhere else. It was one of more than 200 identical local news sites operated by a single person sitting at a laptop, and every article on it, including the one about her taxes, had been generated by an AI system that had never attended a meeting, never made a phone call, and never set foot in her town. The person who ran the Courier was not a journalist and had never pretended to be one, except in the only place it mattered, which was on the page. His operation was simple, scalable, and almost invisible. He had registered hundreds of domains with names that sounded like real local papers: the Courier, the Sentinel, the Times, the Gazette, each attached to a county or a town. He had filled each one with a template that looked like a newspaper, complete with sections and bylines and small headshots of reporters who did not exist, their faces generated by the same kind of model that wrote the stories. Then he had pointed an automated pipeline at public data feeds, government press releases, sports results services, weather APIs, and let an AI rewrite that raw material into thousands of articles a day across all 200 sites. The cost of running the entire network was a few $100s a month. The output was indistinguishable to a casual reader from real local journalism. To understand why anyone would build this, you have to follow the money, and the money comes from advertising. Every one of those AI-written pages carries programmatic ads, the little automated banners and boxes that follow you around the internet. Advertisers do not buy space on the Cedar County Courier specifically. They buy audiences through automated exchanges, and their ads are placed algorithmically across millions of sites, including this one, with almost no human checking where they land. Every time someone like Karen reads an article, a fraction of a cent flows to the operator. One site earns little. 200 sites, each pumping out dozens of articles a day, each article engineered with a local-sounding headline to catch local search traffic, adds up to a real income. Researchers who study this phenomenon, sometimes called pink slime, after the industrial meat filler it resembles, have documented networks where the number of fake local outlets now exceeds the number of real daily newspapers left in the country. The synthetic papers have, by sheer count, begun to outnumber the real ones. The mechanics of how the operator chooses what to build are worth pausing on, because they reveal how calculated the whole thing is. He does not pick towns at random. He targets places where the real paper has recently folded, because those communities still search online for local news out of habit, but no longer have a real source to find. He registers the masthead that sounds most like the paper they lost. He studies which local search terms carry advertising value, county tax rates, school rankings, local election dates, and shapes his AI to produce exactly those articles, engineered to rank first when a resident types a worried question into a search engine. Each site is a trap built at the precise coordinates where a community's trust used to live, and its journalism no longer does. Nothing about it is accidental. It is a business model aimed with surgical care at the grief of towns that lost their newspapers, and the better the operator understands that grief, the more money the network makes. That last fact is the heart of why this matters, and it is not really about advertising. It is about what fills the silence when real local journalism dies. Over the last 2 decades, thousands of genuine local newspapers have closed. Towns that once had a reporter at every school board meeting now have no one. Into that vacuum, where there is no longer anyone watching the city council or fact-checking the mayor, the synthetic sites move in, because the vacuum is exactly where local search traffic and local trust still live. The fakes are not competing with strong local journalism. They are feeding on its corpse, and because they wear the familiar, trusted skin of a hometown paper, they inherit a credibility that they have done nothing to earn and that no algorithm built them to deserve. The victims are not foolish, and that is what makes this effective. Karen Whitfield is a recently retired schoolteacher. She is careful, she is community-minded, she is exactly the kind of person who still values local news. The fakes are designed for her, not against her. The old advice for spotting misinformation, watch for sensational headlines, bad grammar, obvious foreign origin, fails completely here, because the AI writes in clean, measured, professional prose, and the subject matter is deliberately mundane. A fake article about a road closure builds trust that is later spent on a fake article about a ballot measure or a candidate. The mundane stories are the down payment. The consequential ones are the withdrawal. This is where the consequences turn serious, because some of these networks are not merely chasing ad pennies. Investigators have found synthetic local news operations, funded or coordinated to push particular narratives, especially around elections. Dressing partisan or outright false claims in the neutral clothing of a community newspaper. A reader who would distrust an obvious political ad will lower her guard for what looks like the Cedar County Courier reporting a straight local story. The format does the persuading when a fabricated claim about a candidate or a ballot measure appears under a familiar masthead, written in calm journalistic prose beside the real football scores. It borrows the authority of every genuine local paper that ever existed. That is the true product being sold here, not banner ads but laundered trust, and trust laundered at the local level is uniquely corrosive because local news is the last kind most people still believe. Who profits and why does it persist? The operator profits from the ad pennies, multiplied across the network. The programmatic ad exchanges profit from the transaction fees on every placement, including the ones landing on synthetic sites, which is why the automated systems that are supposed to screen for quality remain conveniently porous. Brand advertisers unknowingly fund the whole thing, their ad budgets quietly subsidizing fake newsrooms they would be horrified to be associated with. And whoever wants to move a narrative gets a megaphone wearing the mask of the local press. As with every other AI-enabled scheme, the machinery is woven into legitimate infrastructure that earns from looking the other way. No single party feels responsible, and so no single party stops it. The law, again, is thin. Generating articles with AI is not illegal. Inventing a reporter's name and face is not by itself a crime. Running ads is not a crime. There is no statute that cleanly prohibits dressing a content farm as a local newspaper, and the dispute that exists around defamation or election law moves far slower than a network that can spawn a new site in an afternoon. Some platforms have begun labeling or downranking known pink slime domains, and some ad networks have started cutting off the worst offenders. But enforcement is a game of whack-a-mole against an operator who can register 100 new mastheads before lunch. So here is how to tell a real local outlet from a synthetic one before you trust it or share it. First, look for the people. Real local journalism has real, findable humans. Reporters with histories, with bylines that appear across years and across other publications. With public social presences and contact information. Search a reporter's name. If they exist only on this one site, or if their photo turns up flagged as AI-generated or appears under different names elsewhere, you are looking at a fake. Second, look for an address and a phone number that resolve to an actual place and an actual person, not a contact form that goes nowhere. Real papers have physical roots in the community they cover. Third, read for specificity that only a human present in the room could know. Genuine local reporting contains direct quotes from named local people, descriptions of what a meeting felt like, details no press release would carry. Synthetic articles are smooth but hollow, rewritten from public feeds, never containing a single thing that required a person to actually be there. Fourth, be most skeptical exactly when an article tells you something consequential about an election, a candidate, a tax, or a local controversy, especially if it stirs a strong feeling. That is the moment the laundered trust is being spent. Cross-check the claim against a paper you can independently verify is real. And if you have already trusted or shared one of these sites, you are not gullible, and there is something useful you can do. Stop sharing from it the moment you confirm it, and tell the people you shared it with, because a correction from a trusted neighbor travels farther than any platform label. Report the site to the platforms that surface it, and to media watchdog organizations that maintain public lists of synthetic outlets. Support, if you can, whatever real local journalism still survives in your area, because the only durable defense against fake local news is the existence of the real thing. The synthetic network thrives in the silence left by closed newsrooms. The most powerful counter to it is to keep a real one alive. Karen Whitfield found out the truth when a genuine regional reporter published an investigation into the network that owned her beloved Courier. She felt embarrassed, then angry, then something more useful than either. She started checking bylines. She started asking, before she shared a local story, whether the person who supposedly wrote it actually existed. It is a small habit, and it will not by itself rebuild the local newsrooms that have vanished. But in a world where one person at a laptop can run 200 newspapers that never employed a single reporter, the simple act of asking whether the writer is real has quietly become one of the most radical things a reader can